locations might help you.
Yeah, it might, yes.
Have you considered leasing your backyard out for a tower?
There you go. Neighbors may not like it.
No,
I got a bunch of tall pine trees.
Blend it in.
I'd like to, leave number 4 as my last item and just proceed to number 5. The board had requested that I put together a newsletter or information update to employees, communicating happenings, events, achievements. We did do our first newsletter. The goal was to try to make it relevant to the employees. We sent it out to everyone. The response so far has been quite favorable. So people are pretty happy and pretty accepting of what's going on. I want to thank the board for their suggestion. It was very helpful and right on.
Good. So I think you did a good job.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Valiakonis, because I was the one that actually brought this forward. And I've already heard from some employees, and they're very happy with it. And it's just a communications tool, you know, and they're very happy with it. So I want to thank you for getting that going.
You convinced me, Selectman Reno.
You did a good job. I can't get it off the computer yet, but it's on the windmill. I can't open the windmill.
I gotta take some business.
Number 6, Town Council has suggested a meeting on the Water Management Act appeal. This was the matter that was going to be reviewed 2 weeks ago, the big packet. He suggested September 2nd, availability possibly 6 o'clock.
Now, he's the guy that canceled
He's the
because of a
canceler.
personal problem or
Yes.
something last
Yes.
time.
I just throw that out there as a suggestion.
Well, if that's gonna take place, I've already put in my calendar, we're gonna meet at 6 instead of, but we never asked the board.
6 is fine with me, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
everybody? On September 2nd?
I might be late.
Have to recover from Labor Day an hour earlier.
Depends on where I'm gonna be. So,
Yeah.
Feel free to start without me. I'll be
Yeah,
there.
me as well. 'Cause
I expect.
I've done it before.
Yeah.
Me as well, because I mean, that'll be in my 3rd week at this job. I don't know how forgiving Rep.
Well-
Jones is at the moment.
And after
Still
Labor
testing the
Day,
waters.
everybody rushes back to work, you know.
Yeah, right.
Traffic is
He
heavy.
may want to have you attend the meeting on his behalf. Since
What the
it's
hell?
an issue in
There
your
you go.
those communities.
We could invite him. In fact, he
And
maybe,
then you can
he
carpool.
probably should be
You can give me
Maybe
a
you
ride,
can carpool,
you can give
maybe
me a
you
ride
carpool.
back from Boston, yeah.
Maybe carpool. Go green.
next.
I've been taking the train.
Just the last item is number 4. I wanted to confirm disciplinary actions involving the police department, which, as you know, there was a hearing that was held 2 weeks ago. I had to render a decision within a short period of time after the hearings were concluded. I did suspend the officer who was involved 21 days without pay, and also that officer was demoted from the rank of sergeant to patrolman. We have since received an appeal on both of the suspension and demotion, and the appeal will be heard by either an arbitrator or the Civil Service Commission at a future date. That decision rests with the appealing party, and they can choose one or the other venue, but they can't choose both. So that issue is, we'll hear it on appeal.
Just for my own edification, what would be the difference between an arbitrator versus a civil service commission?
It's interesting. The Civil Service Commission is before a 3-member board, so as the decisions are ultimately public, if you go to the Civil Service Commission website, you'll find all of their decisions are publicized, and you can read anything at all. Where arbitration is something that's held that, again, based upon the party's desire, can be held closed. The decision's not necessarily something that's part of the public record, and ultimately rests with one individual versus a political body, which the Civil Service Commission is.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
All the new business? Who wants to start? Want to volunteer? Mr. Bean?
Sure, I'll start.
We'll go clockwise. Chair.
Actually, one of my first one was already covered. I wanted to thank Mr. Valiakonis on that bi-monthly newsletter. I think that's gonna be a great success. I know it'll help remind me of things too. And secondly, I'm sure the rest of the board's gonna agree, condolences go out to the Dimitri family and the passing of Mr. Jim Dimitri. Very fine gentleman, very, very fine person. I've known him many, many years. And that's all I have tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Joe.
Mike?
I'm just waiting for you to get out of your notes.
I'd also like to thank Mr. Balakonis for the newsletter, and my condolences to the Dimitri family. And I'd also like to congratulate newly minted Lieutenant Jones, or permanently Lieutenant Jones. I'm sure he's gonna do a great job. He's kind of one of those guys that I kind of think of as a born police officer. So I think he'll do a good job.
Again, congratulations to Lieutenant Jones. Well-deserved. He's been a long-term employee and a good police officer, as the chief pointed out. And homegrown boy, and it's nice to see again. The ranks, well-deserved, and he'll do a fine job and already has. Again, the Dimitri family, a terrific family overall, and the death of Jim is a great loss to the family and the community. And the only other thing I'd like to bring up and ask for the board's support, initial support right now, is I've been a little frustrated, so have the residents down on Mount Vernon Street with the contractor on the 40B, down there at Mount Vernon Street, and I've been asking the town administrator for an update. He's been trying to get it for us. I would like to just send a little message from the board to the developer, maybe to our department heads too, that I don't want to see another occupancy permit issued on that particular project. It's under control, where the residents are not disturbed by the contractor and are maintaining the rules and regulations as per the agreement. The 40B agreement is approved through the Board of Appeals. And I don't want to see another occupancy permit issued until we have a definitive plan as to when the off-site improvements at Haverhill and Mount Vernon Street are going to be completed and the costs are going to be borne by the contractor. I want to know what the timetable is. So, by our September 2nd meeting, and again, I'll be prepared to make a motion to direct the building inspector to withhold any occupancy permits at that particular time if we don't have some sort of a game plan in place.
Steve, can I ask a question? I assume that the improvements were part of the overall.
They were part of the overall agreement. It was supposed to be done a year ago this fall. It was agreed to be put off until April vacation of this year, and it hasn't been done. And again, it may have been in consultation with the DPW to a certain degree, but I haven't been able to get a definitive answer yet.
And the disturbances of the neighbors, or what's
Work
that
hours,
related
there were
to?
specified work hours. But
So
supposed to
they're
work
working outside of the
Work outside the
hours.
specified working hours, in addition to a whole host of other issues that have come up there at this particular site. And they just haven't been as responsive and responsible as they should be.
And Greg, has the building inspector been on their case on this
The
issue?
building inspector's been on it,
Yep.
but on the case,
Been
it has
on
fined
this
them for
one.
$250 at one point recently, for operating outside the operations. But he's been very lenient with the contractor up to this point, trying to work with them, understanding the current economic conditions and all the rest. But you know what? Those residents have been living with this for far too long also, and he's been deviating from it. He's been less than concerned with their quality of life. Many of the issues have been brought up time and time again, and it's unfortunate.
Are there occupants in that?
I think there are some occupants.
There are
now.
some.
There are some occupants now. But more importantly, as part of the 40B agreement, as approved for the zoning board of appeals, the improvements, offsite improvements there at Mount Vernon and Haverhill Street, going to be borne by them, will be done and completed. And again, my guess is that he's cash strapped or whatever the issue is, but I don't believe there's been any bond posted to make sure that that's going to be done. So the only leverage this community has is to stick to their agreement. Part of that agreement is, as far as I'm concerned, they're not gonna get another occupancy permit until they have some sort of a game plan in place. Make sure those improvements are done well before the project is completed, because it was supposed to be done initially when the infrastructure was put into that place. When they're doing the infrastructure for the drainage and gonna have the hot top machines and everything there, and they decided to postpone that, so now.
So, what you're looking for from the board is,
Just general
Consensus?
consensus that you're in agreement with my stance at this particular point in time. And to give some direction to the administration to make sure that it comes to fruition.
Yeah, I have no problem at all with agreeing with Steve, because I think we've seen instances where some contractors have walked off jobs and not completed things, so.
He's still got a way to go here, he still has
There's no,
to.
there's no
understand.
bond on any of
It wouldn't
that?
no, not necessarily be a bond in this particular case, because, it was just part of the agreement that they were going to do this as part of the project. And, I don't recall any specific dollar amount being set aside in escrow to ensure that it gets done.
Well, it seems to me typically when there's a development going on, there's usually a bond posted.
That's different. This is a private development, it's gonna be maintained by themselves, not by the town. So we're not inheriting the infrastructure there. We're controlling what happens on that site, but
Oh,
we're
I
not
see.
inheriting it, nor, we're not gonna be accepting it
And
as
we didn't ask for a bond for the improvements.
for the improvements to that particular site, and even for the offsite improvements, part of the agreement. During the negotiations, we were going to do it, the DPW was gonna do it, or we're gonna contract out, send them the bill, and they said, no, we've got the wherewithal, we'll do it, and they do have the wherewithal and the equipment to do it, and the contractors to do it. It hasn't been done as of yet, and it's in the calendar sliding, we're coming into another winter season. They're selling off the units, and once that gets sold out, I don't know what our recourse is to ensure that it get done properly on a timely basis. I don't consider it to be timely at this point anyway.
It doesn't get transferred to a condo association or something, no.
I believe so. So before we get into a real pickle with it, I wanna make it visible in public and just make sure it gets done.
I can support your request.
I support it as well. I mean, I think on a weekly basis, in the paper, you see how it's reported, how they're working, either before hours or after hours. And also the site improvements should have been done a long time ago, so I support it. Steve.
Mike?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Sean?
As my fellow board members have stated, my condolences also to the Dimitri family. I also congratulate Lieutenant Jones. I also would like to congratulate another member of our community, Glenn DeKay, who lives up in McIntyre Development, who's been appointed as the new principal of the Hood School. I've known Glenn for a few years, and I'm sure he'll do a terrific job as the new principal down at the Hood School.
Oh, I didn't realize he was a North Reading resident. Nice that.
He is.
Very good.
We made sure he's not in the same school system that is, the same school his kids are in, so it's, he's got some buffer.
Anything else?
That's all.
Well, the chair wishes the condolences to the Dimitri family and also Lieutenant Jones. I spent substantial amount of time last week looking into our FY 2010 budget. And looking at, our current revenue trends. I brought this up at the last meeting, and we will be, I haven't worked out a final date, but we'll have a financial planning team meeting this week. I'll get that out tomorrow as to when, as I pull everybody's, can we attend, and start to set some guidelines for our FY 2010 budget. But we have a substantial road to cover to just get to a point where we're maintaining our existing services again. The issues before us that are somewhat different than last year are the fact that our revenue is in the area of new growth, short of the Berry Center, which has helped us, rather than made things even worse than they could have been, has fallen off, which has driven fees or auto excise tax. The trend is down to the point where we have concerns even for the 2009 budget. And we clearly have to deal with the insurance issue, as we talked about. So, I mean, that's got to be right on the top of our priorities just to get through even this year. If we could get a half year's worth of relief there, it would be a big help. So, I'm not bringing up specifics, but after the finance planning team meeting and our next meeting, we can talk about specifics.